Mr. Pierovich, is it? My name is Gonella Enzo, and I am a historian with the Keepers of the Flame. I understand you've had quite the long and storied life at the heart of a lot of major events across 3 whole ages. Something very few mortals can lay claim to, much less a human.
And you want to record what's in this old noggin before it gets scrambled from the heat and time, eh?
Well, I'd never be so crass as to put it that way.
I'm playing with you, child. Sit down. Now, where should an old soldier like me start recounting his tale? I doubt you have all day, after all.
What about your time in Alderdale? Your last mission with Fastric's Outlaws before your grand adventure?
Alderdale, huh? Well, now that brings me back, all right. I'd say this started back in 62, maybe a year before the changing of the age. I'd been in this world for about 10 years at that point. Made my way for a time off charity, pity, and the curiosity of rich folk who wanted to meet the man out of time. After that, a sellsword, but there wasn't any heart in it. That's when I met a man named Fastric Gelbo. A fire genasi with a temper and oration to match his exterior. He'd recruited me into his outlaw band, a group dedicated to the protection of the genasi from the tyrant Pierovich line ruling Alderdale. Some punks who'd been in charge for about 300 years because of some son of fire that popped up and conquered. Disgrace to the Pierovich name, even if I wasn't actually related to them. Anyway, for whatever reason, greed, fear, opportunism, it doesn't really matter, the Kingdom of Alderdale had been persecuting the genasi for years, and in some towns they were even being killed. Fastric aimed to put a stop to it, and that felt just fine by me. But I'd made him promise that he'd help me find my son. I wanted no gold, no glory, no titles. Just my son back. I worked for several years with the man, sometimes as the quartermaster, one of my old professions in the army before I was a captain, sometimes as a cook, a cobbler, but most often as boots on the ground when something needed to be hit hard. That's when the assignment came in. Owari, a half-devil of some kind, Hearth, a red dragonborn paladin, myself, and a drunkard dwarf were sent to the town of Alini because the local lord, Kalin, had rounded up all 30 of the genasi living in his town. With the annual harvest festival on the horizon, it proved a perfect cover for us to come in, especially since Owari owned a brewery there. God's damned the bastard, I don't even remember his name, but the dwarf got drunk off his gourd to the point I had to drag him into town behind us. I threw him into the tavern and left him there. Never did see him again. I suppose he got off easy for someone traveling with me.
Do you need a minute, sir? I understand you lost a lot of companions over the years. If you need to pick this up later...
No, I'm fine. I just, Where was I? Right. We set up shop in Owari's business and started planning our next move. That's when we ran into a pair of genasi and a human who'd been hiding in her place. Peleatus, the academic wizard, Lear, a servant of some fey or fiend, I know not which, and Anhera, a cleric of Bises, the god of travelers and shepherd of the dead. They'd escaped the prison the night before, but only after discovering that a mass execution was being planned for the following evening. We stayed up into the long hours of the night planning. Owari brewed a divinely intoxicating drink in hopes of knocking out the guards, I sharpened my glaive and studied the map of the town. Peleus reviewed his spells for anything which might give us an edge. We at least had a day to execute our plan, or so we thought. I was the first one to wake. Old habits die hard, and when you spend your life marching on campaign, you tend to beat Ezreus out of bed. Don't look at me like that. He might be the god of the sun to you, but to me, he's my grandfather-in-law. But that's a story for another time. But anyway, even I was barely into my armor when the bells started ringing. No one knew what it was for, but we all knew something was happening. I rushed to the town square with Peleus invisible in tow and Hearth close behind. I found a nice perch for sniping and got a view of what was happening, while Hearth slowly worked away in the crowd towards the front. The executions were starting right then. Apparently, our daring trio's escape hadn't gone unnoticed, and the guards wanted to make sure they got their example before anyone else managed to flee. The wizard bolted off to get the others, and Hearth waited for me to make the first move, not wanting to risk being surrounded without backup unless absolutely necessary. But time had run out. Lord Kalen took to the stage, looking awfully proud of the innocent civilians he'd managed to hire a pack of gnolls to capture, and began speaking of safety, prosperity, purity for his people. Same tired old shit tyrants have promised for all of history. I've never been a praying man, but in that moment I used every ounce of will I had to beg that the windbag kept congratulating himself long enough for that insane wizard to get back with the rest of the group.
But they didn't, did they? What happened next?
I drew my bow, called upon what little spark my runes could muster at the time, and roared, "Kalen, you mad tyrant! These people have done nothing but try to live, yet you take everything from them and hide behind a wall of gnolls? Coward! Release them before any blood is shed this day." I could feel every beat of my heart, every bead of sweat as it seemed the world had stopped, looking for the arrogant lord's reply.
Quickly! We are under attack! Kill them and take care of this rabble!
Before he even finished his sentence, I loosed the arrow I'd been holding back, hitting the pack leader and executioner square in the chest, fiery chains wrapping around him. And then the strangest thing happened. The beast's axe seems to bite his own throat out, killing him. It seemed blood would be shed after all. Hearth was perhaps one of the bravest souls I'd ever met to that point, second only to maybe Beldrop himself, and managed to hold her own against the horde as more of them swarmed towards me. My second arrow, keep in mind, when I'm in that sort of state my arrows are the size of your forearm, caved the lord's chest in, and he fell back as unceremoniously as he deserved. Lear and Anhera managed to arrive with Awari right about then, though Peleus was dragging behind. Turns out an academic sprinting at full tilt to save some innocents really wins them. Anyway, I won't bore you with the blow by blow, but apparently old Kalen wasn't out of the fight yet. He stood up, eyes burning bright, and let out an explosion of energy. Our illustrious lord, it would seem, was a dragon cultist. About slagged my glaive and Hearth's armor, but then Peleus finally made it. Made an educated guess that the man actively on fire might not like the cold, and blasted him with a ray of ice so potent it split him in two. With both their pack leader and employer dead, I roared out to the gnolls to flee while they still had breath, and to my surprise, they actually listened. As we were recuperating, I went around and broke the chains of the Genasi, one of whom, Pebbles, was a blacksmith working for a man named Thorns. He offered to try and repair our gear, and we agreed. My glaive was far more than a weapon, though. It had carried me through decades, had been flung through time with me. Don't worry, I'll elaborate on that soon enough. Hell, I forged it myself when I was a young man back in the army. So I kept the shaft and gave him the blade. Natrox smithing was a completely extinct art by that point, though, so Thorns decided to take the blade and try to find a place called the Great Forge and try to fix it. The day now thoroughly saved, we returned to Fastric's camp, our new allies and a few of the free Genasi falling in with us, and had a celebration that night. It felt good to do good, though my mind could only linger on the thought of wanting to share it with my little Namir, wherever he might be. He'd have been about 20 by that point. He was only 10 when we were thrust into this age. But something burning deep inside of me knew he was alive and out there. I just had to find him.
Well, Mr. Pierovich, this has been quite the tale indeed. I'll of course want to find maps or other sources for comment, but being able to speak to someone who lived in the old kingdom of Alderdale is always a treat.
Tell you what, if I'm still kicking, you come back next week, and I'll tell you what happened next, eh?
Why, yes, that would be fantastic. I'll see you then.